is the anniversary dance that you guys talk about all the time?
Simple.
Simple.
It's a dance. This is how I do it. You invite all of the married couples out onto the dance floor along with the bride and groom. You play one song. During the song, intermittently, 30, 40 seconds, whatever, however long the song is, you break it up and you say, anyone married less than 5 years, please leave the floor. Married less than 10, 15, 20. The goal is to get to the couple married the longest. I preface this by saying, please don't be offended if I ask you to leave the floor if you're married less than a certain amount of years. The sole purpose of this dance is to establish who is married the longest. To be funny, about 15 seconds into it, I say, anyone married less than 5 hours, get off the dance floor. So everyone starts laughing. The bride and groom leave.
Wonder where you got that one.
Hello.
Now, if you gave it to me, I'm happy to give you the credit, but I'll be honest, I've been doing it that way for like 20 years.
Well,
now,
I genuinely have.
Now, I've heard it done the other way. How many people, anybody else do it the opposite way?
Well, I do it both ways, depending on the situation.
That about him.
Yeah, I know. I should have started with "it depends," I guess.
It depends.
$20
but
$20.
If I'm trying to fill the dance floor with the song, like if that song, if the anniversary dance is coming at the end of other things, say the cake cutting and whatever, then if I'm using it as a floor filler, I go in the reverse. I begin with the couple married the shortest amount of time, less than 24 hours, as Jason said, sort of. Funny thing about that, I one time did the less than 24 hours bit on the, starting with that first to get them off the dance floor, and 3 couples left the dance floor. 2 had eloped the night before the wedding.
Wow.
Unbeknownst to anybody, like it was just kind of funny. Anyway, so if I'm using it as a floor filler, I start with the bride and groom, married less than 24 hours, go to 1 year, go to 5 years, and so forth. And then, until I'm done with the last married couple as the longest married couple, that's how I do it. One of the motivators to do that, also aside from being a floor filler, is sometimes you don't want to leave that couple that's been married 67 years up on the dance floor for an entire song or 2.
Now, Brian had a different take on that. Wasn't that you, Brian, where you did it the opposite way, where you would take the bouquet and then hand it to grandmother?
Well, I'll briefly give you a setup for this, because this is where I think a lot of DJs struggle. They don't know how to introduce it. So I'll just get on the microphone and I'll just say, could we have all the married couples on the floor? No, this is not the bouquet toss or the garter toss. I want the married couples. Can I get all the married couples out here on the floor? And they'll come out, and I won't give them much of an explanation. I'll just say, if you don't know what we're doing out here, just watch our bride and groom and you'll figure it out real quick. And I'll put the song on, and my delivery on this, and Jay's been doing it too. I don't know where I got it from. I guess I thought I'd give it to Jay, but I guess I didn't. But I'll say it's all in the delivery sometimes. So, if anyone out there has been married for less than, 3 hours, please leave the floor. And then you get a big laugh if you deliver it right.
Yeah.
Right.
And they'll leave, and then they'll kind of get it. And then you go 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year. Then I start skipping into 5s. And I try to have an idea of who might be the couple who's been married the longest, because I don't want to get to 35 and then I have to actually get to 55 and I start going 1 year at a time and they're out there for a long time and I blow the song. I try to get an idea who's been out there for the longest. So,
well, it's like when you say 40 and 3 couples leave and you're like, there's no one left. You're like, whoa,
right. Oops. Whoa, yeah.
Whoa. You went 35 to 40. You got to now go. Whoa, folks, you can't all leave at once.
I will ask sometimes the bride, perhaps, do you know who's been married the longest? I don't know. Is your grandparents? Oh yeah, it's my grandparents. Sometimes it turns out to be somebody else. I remember Andy's wedding. My parents won. And we thought it was going to be his grandparents, but it wasn't. My parents had been married longer than his grandparents had been married.
Wow.
And one of the brides had suggested to me, and I thought it was so clever, and I still use it. She says, I don't want to do a bouquet toss. So what I'd like to do instead is give the bouquet to the wife of the couple who's been married the longest. So that was a cool way
do that too.
of...
And you and I may have discussed that because, again, that's something I've been probably doing as long as I've known you.
Right.
So you may have given me that one too.
Well, I got the idea from a client. They gave me the idea, and I thought it was so good. And the other thing
because
that
it
I
gets
will
them
do,
out of the bouquet toss if they don't want that. It's a great way to get into it.
And like you said, Brian, you preface it a little bit by saying, look, it's not the garter, it's not the bouquet.
Right. So I just need the married couples. You know, I'm not misspeaking here. Yeah. And
I said the bride and groom would like to share a dance with everybody. Could all the married couples please come on out on the dance floor?
Well, the last thing that I do that I'll share with the class, so I'm not taking everybody's time here, is once we have our couple out there who's been married the longest, I will go to them with the wireless microphone. That's, I don't walk out on the floor as much as I used to, but I do this for this particular thing. And I'll say, okay, do you have any advice for our newlyweds? And give them the microphone, let them say whatever they want. Usually gets a laugh, don't do it, or, do whatever she says, or maybe it's a sweet thing or whatever. But that's another thing you can do with that. And then you can go into a party song and do your night. So,
and just real quick on top of Brian's before Eric or John goes, one thing that's worked really well for me is I'll say to the couple ahead of time, if they buy into the anniversary dance, by the way, who's going to win? Because they traditionally will know. They'll say, oh, it's my parents, his parents, my grandparents, his. And I'll say, do me a favor. Find out if they had a first dance at their wedding, but do it like this. Give them a call and say, man, this wedding planning, oh, I know it's difficult. We're talking to this idiot DJ we hired. And they'll laugh on the phone sometimes. And, we can't even figure out our first dance. Like, what was your first dance? And sometimes they say we didn't have one. And sometimes they'll say, oh, it was this. A few weeks ago, it was Leather and Lace. They got married in the early 70s or mid 70s, whenever Leather and Lace came out. And that was their song.
That would have been like 82, 83. That's okay. Close enough.
Same thing in my world. My calendars, I've taken the years off now. I no longer acknowledge birthdays. I no longer acknowledge calendars. When I was told by my beautiful wife, Michelle, that I'm in my 7th decade, that's when it all started to go south. So they told me, oh, it's my parents. They've been married for this long, and Leather and Lace. So I chose Leather and Lace as the anniversary song. And at the end of it, when her parents won, I said, folks, how long have you been married? And they're like, oh, 42 years, whatever. I said, great. Do you remember your first dance? Yeah. What was it? It was this song. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And again, you've got to sell this. This is fate. I just randomly picked this song because I tell the bride and groom, don't ever tell them I knew.
Do you lie to your clients? That's awesome.
That's 100%. Well, I only do it after saying, to be honest, I picked this song.
To be honest,
to tell you the truth.
Here's a line of shit. Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing. John Young's going to give you a $5 fine for that word, young man. Here's the other thing. When you sell the anniversary dance, I highly recommend you say, this is a great thing you can do. People love it. It shows respect for marriage. But if through death or divorce, it's going to make anyone uncomfortable, let's not do it. And that's when you hear, my grandfather died 6 months ago. My grandparents were married for 61 years. Let's skip it if you think your grandmother's going to be upset. And a funny quick story, I had a bride a week out call me and say, by the way, first dance is this. We're not doing the anniversary dance. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. She's like, for what? I said, well, it was your grandparents. They were married for 55 years, and you're not doing it now because they're not either not coming or there was an incident. She goes, oh, there was an incident. Yeah, my grandfather left my grandmother. Excuse me? Oh, it gets better. He's going to be at the wedding. Okay. He's going to be at the wedding with his 35-year-old secretary, and so's my grandmother. I'm like, good for him. Are you serious? She's like,
for him.
Yeah. And in my head, I'm like, this guy's well into his 70s. He's got a 35-year-old, which is sort of kind of cool.
Right.
But then the grandmother's going to be there on the other side of the room. And I'm like, can you tell me where they're sitting so when I walk past, I don't get killed by the daggers?
Right.
Yeah, but that's true story. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we got Eric and John. You guys have any?
Yeah, I'll take a run through. Just, I mean, you guys covered a lot of the great points. I do it with the elimination. I guess the two things we didn't touch on is before you start this, make sure the photographer knows it's going off, because you'll have a full dance floor, and that's a great photo.
Oh, good point.
And the other is just not to drag it out too long, because if you are keeping the older folks out that were married a long time, try to do it in like a 4 or 5 minute song and get it done. Don't make it a dance marathon with 3 or 4 songs in a row. Try to just get to the point, get through it in 4 or 5 minutes, and get it down to the final couple, and then take the mic out, and then you can even ask them how long. Oh, 38. Oh, okay. 39. Oh, okay. Then you get your numbers, and you know where to do the chop offs. But Jay, the interesting one too, for the one where you said the poor grandmother was widowed, you could have just given her the bouquet as an honorary and say, in fact that since your husband couldn't be here, I'm sure he'd want you to have this, so behalf of the wedding, etc. So
I mean, and that's a great point I never considered, and that's something in the future I'd certainly mention. The problem is it's come up, and I think Brian does it the same way in this. And this might even be another topic, Howie. I've watched over the years so many changes in the wedding. Like when I got married in 2000, we did our entire first dance, Final Acclaim by Rod Stewart. So we're out there for like 4:22. Why? Because I didn't know you could cut a first dance short. I'd never cut a first dance short at a wedding, ever. So I didn't know. I haven't played a first dance in the last 3, 4, 5 years. Over about maybe twice I've played the full song. Other than that, they're coming to me with like, what do you think for the first dance, Jay? About a minute? I go, well, they're taking photographs. Maybe let's go 2. So 99% of my weddings, first dance is 2 minutes. Father-daughter is 1.5 to 2 minutes. Mother-son is 1.5 to 2 minutes. Like, they don't care what the song is. It could be Bohemian Rhapsody. And they're like, let's get right out right before it goes. Just right there, chorus, verse, done. So, it's one of those selling them. No. I'm saying, if they want to do the bouquet toss, the bouquet gets taken out of the anniversary. Right. Hence why the anniversary kind of grew, because so many brides stopped doing the bouquet toss.
I could add one little tidbit to this. I just thought of this, and I've done it once before, and I guess it's a matter of language. Jay and I have had this conversation before where it's, when it was the same sex couples, we were having a hard time with the bride and groom instead of just giving their names. There are situations much like mine where we're not really married. We say husband and wife, but we're not married. So the verbiage of married sometimes is how couples have been together longest. And
that's a great point.
I've done
that too.
Yeah, good point.
I've done it once before. If you're in a situation where you're with maybe perhaps a more progressive crowd, that might be something you can do.
Just say couples that are committed or together.
People been together for longer than, or
whatever. No, that's Eric, and I've even had straight couples say, I have couples that are still together that haven't been married.
Yeah.
I'm just absorbing everything tonight, Howie. That's all.
Are you? Oh, okay.
Some of this is regional, and I'm not as creative as the other guys, it seems, because I always use Kenny Rogers through the years.
I do too.
And so as it comes to the end, I time it. So I've got 30 seconds of just the bride and groom. Of just the winning couple on the dance floor. And I say, and this one's for you. But to get to that point, a lot of times, we go and you go 25, 30, 35, 40, and you can start to see the crowd starting to whittle down. And then when I get, and all things being equal, you try to get it so it's down to 1. I go, okay, let's find out how many years they have been together. 41, 42, 43. And then the crowd sometimes will start chanting with me as I'm ripping it off. And then, we get to that point, 72 years together. But
you're an OG, man.
Yeah.
Do you do it on the crescendo of through the years? Because I've done that before too.
Absolutely.
When I know where it is, and I try to. And then the big applause comes in the crescendo. The key changes at the end and the last chorus. Yes.
And you got 30 seconds left, and that's it.
You're OG. That takes practice.
Oh yeah.
Tough the weak at heart.
I do. Jay Giles loves stinks normally, but I'm open for interpretation. I don't know everything. Brian's choking. Is he okay? Get the defibs.
Now, the second question, which should should take us to the end of the show because, boy, I guess there's probably quite a few different names for this, but what is the honeymoon dance you speak of? And, it's the dollar dance, whatever. I mean, in my area, typically they have a little white satchel and, you put money or an envelope in it and it's announced, as, the honeymoon dance, meaning money for the honeymoon.
Right.
Because I don't know, dollar dance is kind of
definitely a stigmatism calling it that. Yes.
Yeah.
But this is super regional too. Like certain areas don't know what a money dance is at all. The same way that California, if you went up to 100 brides and said, what's a receiving line? They would have no idea.
Really?
But yet in Boston, every wedding I ever went to had a receiving line.
Yeah.
That was understood. And that's where you gave the envelopes to the best man. At least the weddings that I've been in, they'd walk in, bride and groom, best man. I'd have a little bag, give you the envelope.
Huh.
So you went to a lot of mafia weddings, is what you're saying.
Here in Jersey,
Jersey
they have a table, and people will bring gifts and envelopes there, and I have to go to them and go, hey, this is a big box. Yeah, it's going to be hard to take. I said, but you should have somebody, taking these envelopes for you, because I have, I've been to a wedding where all the envelopes disappeared. Now the checks, they were able to cancel, but the cash, it was gone,
Is that
Brian okay?
On the corner.
I'm not smoking off camera.
Okay, good. That's what I figured. I thought I saw a light. All right, I'll keep you off camera for a second. Real quick, my wedding 22 years ago, out here in California, the honeymoon dance, aka money dance, is still done. Not as much as it was 20 years ago, but it was done.
But what do they call it?
Then they called it the dollar dance or the money dance. And I didn't like it. And being from Boston, and most of my wedding guests were from Boston, it wasn't something I wanted to put them through because they spent money to fly out, get a hotel, the whole deal. I'm like, I'm not going to beg them for money at the wedding. It's not cool. But in Filipino weddings, it is a huge thing. Like when I say huge, I did a wedding for $500 in 1999. The bride and groom got $60,000 in cash. Not checks, cash.
I need to marry a Filipino.
Exactly. And that's another story altogether. But when my wedding came, I told my DJ, I was like, Kanan, no money dance, no money dance, no money dance. My best man's Filipino. His mother comes up after a Catholic church wedding and says, oh, Jay, the wedding was so beautiful. You have to do this. And shamed me into it. And Kanan, my DJ, luckily came over and he goes, I got a way to take care of this. I said, okay, I trust you. He gets on the mic. We're sitting at the head table. It was, I think, I don't know what we were doing before, but I remember sitting when he said this. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, have you ever seen a more beautiful bride? Everyone claps. You ever seen a more handsome groom? I got booze. I will admit. I'm not proud. And he goes, you know what? And I'm quoting now because this is how I've done the honeymoon dance for 22 years. A lot of you have asked throughout the evening if you had a chance to maybe dance with the bride and groom. We're going to give you that opportunity right now. I'd like Jane and Michelle to come out on the dance floor, along with Tony and Andrea, the best man and maid of honor. Ladies, I'd like you to line up behind Tony to dance with Jay. Gentlemen, you can line up behind Andrea, the maid of honor, to dance, with Michelle. And this is the critical part. You leave it there, and this is how I tell all my couples. I leave it there, I play 3 or 4 slow songs, and they dance with you. I put it at lower volume. They can talk to you, give you a hug, tell you how they feel. Or, and I'm quoting my DJ 22 years ago, and for those of you that inquired earlier in the evening as to when it would be the appropriate time to donate to the bride and groom's honeymoon, this would be that time. I've had a 100% success rate with that verbiage of people coming up and saying to me, this was a great wedding. I've been to weddings. They do that freaking dollar dance. They do this. They do that. It sucked. This was a classy wedding. Because all I'm telling the crowd is some people here want to give them money. If you want to, you can. But first I started with, you can dance with the bride and groom. I didn't tell you you needed money up front. And like I said, I stole it word for word from my DJ. It's the way I've done it ever since. It's the way I'll do it for the rest of my career. And I've seen the videos of guys going, hey, everybody, dollar dance. Well, guess what? If you're doing a dollar dance, you're at a strip club.
Yeah.
There should be a pole somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. If you're bringing a pole out, do a dollar.
It has a lot of poles.
If you got a subwoofer in front of your setup and they're doing a big dance and they fall into, oh, that's another video. I'm just saying.
Like Jay said, there's, different cultures have different, ways of doing it, different ways of things to call it. When I was not yet a DJ, but a groomsman at a Russian Catholic wedding where 600 people were in the reception hall, I learned very quickly about the wonders of the apron dance. And that's primarily an Eastern European term for it. But all of these tend to follow different branches of the Catholic Church. The Greeks call it the money dance. They unabashedly call it the money dance. And they're not even shy about it. You don't put it in a satchel or something. You throw it up in the air and make it rain, literally. Greeks were making it. Huh?
Oh my God.
Greeks. Yeah. My daughter married a Greek. My son-in-law's Greek. So when they had their first dance, grandma went out there and made it rain on them.
Really?
Just what they do in Greece.
I've seen that at Greek weddings. Yeah,
it's cool.
But it was during the first dance.
That's the same thing you do at the strip club. Make it rain.
It is, but guess what grandma did? The fact that grandma did it.
Grandma doesn't fold them.
The fact that the fact that grandma did it.
Grandma doesn't write her phone number on them.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Then a bridesmaid collected all the money that.
But you're right, Bill. And it is somewhat regional because in my area now, people don't want to do the dollar dance, is what we call it here in upstate New York. And so I've come up with the idea that, okay, if you don't want to do the dollar dance, how about a piece of advice? Because everybody likes to dance with the bride or the groom in 15, 20 seconds. And that's it. But, you want to dance with your favorite Aunt Lisa for that little bit of time. She has to give you a piece of advice to make your wedding, or your marriage successful. So.
Yeah, you can call it that. Cool. I seem to remember a while back we were talking in another one of these shows about the selfie dance. Could be the same thing.
Cubby came up with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's actually a really good one.
Yeah.
They called it the selfie dance. Basically, people would come up and take a selfie with the bride and groom. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. In other cultures, it's actually called the veil dance, and that's like typically Italian and Spanish, where they pin the money directly onto the veil.
Good Lord.
And that can obviously take a while. But the interesting thing, as a guest and a participant for this Russian one, while you were in line, they were taking the money and kind of rolling it up and then tying it in knots. And the whole purpose to this is where doing some Googling can help sometimes.
To ruin the dollars.
No, it was so that it wasn't charity. The bride and groom were working for the money.
Okay.
To untie the knots. Okay. And this goes back, this goes back centuries to when most money was coins and lower denominations had holes through them so they could actually string it together, when carrying it around. And they would take the apron, wouldn't have pockets. They would have tiny little ribbons sewn onto it, and they would tie these ridiculous knots to tie the coins onto the apron. And that was the whole way.
Aren't you the brainiac tonight, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I would not be untying them because I own one of these.
Well, yeah, but you're not gonna.
Howie brings. So we've learned Howie brings a stiletto to every event.
Well,
yeah,
and he doesn't just wear them on his
dollar bills in half.
You never know.
You never know.
Living in
next
Milwaukee.
to be like Howie whips out a taser. That wouldn't happen at my way. Look,
all right. So the most extreme version of this was a friend of mine. He was a football player from WVU, and his friends decided that they would take the dollar bills and they brought out a stapler, a regular home stapler, and they stapled them to his chest. True story.
Well, that's
okay,
a military thing when you get certain ranks and medals, that's just staple.
But see, I actually saw one where they stapled each one together, like end to end, and they called that the money chain.
Oh yeah, no, they just stapled it to his chest,
and they hit him over the head with collapsible chairs.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
and little garbage cans.
WWF wedding.
Yeah.
The night of Max's.
This is Eric introducing. Oh yeah,
Max.
Here's $1, brother.
Let's get ready.
Now, Ultimate Warrior.
it
occurs to me, I think we may have confused the guy that asked these questions. He's probably going,
have we done any good here?
I shouldn't have asked these guys this stuff.
Well, here in Milwaukee, this is like it's a Polish Sherman tradition thing. So I'd never seen it until I moved here, and I think the whole ethnically Polish Sherman folks are very American by now. They're fifth, sixth generation. A lot of that stuff isn't really spoken about too much anymore. But I have personally found that as our services have commanded more money, that the dollar dance, if you will, has been less and less requested, because it's a time burner that doesn't really make the money. They're paying more for me per hour than it would take me to do, than they're going to make in a 4-song set for a money dance or a dollar dance. So it's kind of dated around here. A lot of people opt not to do it unless it's very, very ethnic and it's part of the culture. In that case, I would just recommend that you keep it as short as possible. Don't let this thing go for a half hour. Do 3 songs tops. And I always try to get if we're having the best man and maid of honor out there releasing people from the line to go dance with the couples, I go to them and I'll say, keep it to about 10 seconds, but watch the line and try to pace it. Don't leave her out there alone. Don't leave him out there alone.
Or look at me and I'll say like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you need some help, look at me.
20 seconds, keep them moving.
It used to be the norm. Yeah. It's not anymore.
No.
Around here,
they'll stay out for a while. The other thing, at least with my presentation, is these are events that can traditionally happen at weddings. And as your DJ, it's my obligation to tell you about them and explain them. But it's your preference at your wedding as to what you do or don't want to do. I didn't invent the honeymoon dance or the garter and bouquet or the anniversary dance, but I want to make sure that you understand these are options you have.
I don't even.
And then I'll even say, do you have other things you've seen at weddings that you want to do that maybe I haven't mentioned? I've had weddings where they do a thing called jump the broom. Have you guys ever had a couple jump the broom?
Want to wash each other's feet? That was weird. What do that?
Party once.
I've done that at 2 weddings, Brian.
I've done it too. I'm just saying it was weird as hell. But
jump the broom is a very ethnic piece based on slavery, where after a wedding they would jump the broom. So I've had couples. Is there anything else? Well, have you ever heard jump the broom? I'm like, do you want to do it on the introduction or after the ceremony? And they're like, oh, you've heard of it? I'm like, yes. You can do it on the introduction if you want, into the reception, where we will lay a broom out. And as you're introduced, you will hold hands and both jump over the broom. Again, it's all, because I don't know everything any more than anyone else. So if they saw something at a wedding that they really, like the snowball dance. I've never done the snowball dance because I play good enough music, unlike that DJ that needed to drag people out. But I understand.
I've done it for kids.
I understand. Right. I understand how
kids.
some events it works out, kids events, whatever.
Mhm.
So I think, even the questions are poignant and direct, but it still comes down to what are you comfortable in telling your clients you're willing to do for them? And what do they want to have at their event?
If I have to explain the dollar dance to somebody, they don't need the dollar dance.
They don't need it.
It's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, don't they always? I mean, Brian, how many of your couples don't have an idea about it? Like, 100% of mine will say, "Oh yeah, we've seen that," and I'm like, "It doesn't sound like it's for you." Yeah, we'll skip that. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
again, I'm just here as the professional vendor who wants to make sure that you get what you want.
Sure.
I don't want you a week later going, "How come we didn't do a money dance? I just saw a money dance video on YouTube. Why didn't we do that?" Wish Jade mentioned that.
You offer it. I mean, like you say out here on the East Coast, we generally do a receiving line. It's ushers and bridesmaids, and then the bride and groom at the end, and everyone goes down the line. And
Never out here, John, ever. And it's one of those things where I say, like, oh, and they'll say, like, receiving line. I'm like, oh, you want to do a receiving line? They're like, what is that? I'm like,
how do they greet the wedding couple then?
They again, and it's a regional thing, Eric. It's a great point. They greet them at some point throughout the night randomly, or what I tell my couples is dinner is 6:00. You're going to sit down at 6. At 6:20, I'm going to come over to you and say, if you're done eating, like 20 minutes, bless you, Brian.
Thank you.
Or Gesundheit. Pick one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Salute.
Salute. If you would like to mingle, this is the time to do it because your guests are seated.
Yep.
They're eating.
Exactly.
This is the time to go touch tables.
So, by the way,
That's how I do
it's
it,
your
yeah.
obligation as the bride and groom to say thank you and hello to every single person that is in the room. This is the best time to do it. And if you would like, let's get your photographer. Oh, they're eating their dinner. Well, screw them. They don't need to eat like I don't need to eat.
Right.
They can come out and take a photo of you with every single
guest, right? That's a photo op all beginning to end. Yep.
There's all these different ways to angle it, but at least on the West Coast, I've never in 27 years of DJing, I've never once seen, done, or had mentioned a receiving line.
Jay,
it's almost an archaic thing.
It's wicked old school.
It is archaic. Yeah.
At least out here.
I've never done one.
Well,
out here in Jersey anyway, they'll go from table to table and people will give envelopes. And the reason they don't want a money dance is because it's kind of like a regional thing where it's like, hey, look, you're going to give double the price of the meal is what you're going to give. That's customary here. Like if your meal was $125, okay, you're going to give at least $250, $300 in an envelope.
I'm moving back to New Jersey.
So my parents never even knew how to tip properly. I mean, they didn't grow up that way. They weren't raised that way. So going out to dinner with my parents,
people are giving money.
Buying, I have to have money in my pocket to tip because they're going to embarrass me.
Well, they're going to give something, and it's usually cash. And if they already know the price of the meal is $125, then they put $250 in an envelope.
Do most people know how much their meal costs when they go to a wedding? I don't think people talk about that. Come on over. By the way, your meal costs this. That maybe, but yeah.
Most of them do around here. I mean, and there's this thing called the interwebs where you just go to Google, and if you go to that venue, it tells you what the prices are for the.
Have you met my mother? She doesn't Google.
Not yet.
No. She Google is kind of science fiction. We're getting there.
So what have we established here?
Now we have an iPad, and it's getting more fun. So
right, I'm moving to New Jersey, and it might be a while before Brian's mother comes to my new wedding.
Well, there you go.
How much to tip?
Because I cannot. My brain is spinning right now that people are willing to tip double the price of the meal.
Wow! Yeah.
At a wedding.
Well, because it pays for the meal and then a little something for the bride and groom. So most people know the prices. Come on, you can't be that dumb that you don't know how much a country.
I've honestly never really thought about it myself. I mean, maybe it's $50. Maybe I don't know how much.
This is the learning experience, Brian, because I mean,
wow.
we generally know when you're at a wedding, it's $50 to $80 to $100 to $150 a plate.
Right.
And Howie's correct. You can go online and go to the venue and go, package A, it's $50. Package B, if you wanted to work it out in your head, you could probably get pretty close. I just didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, who does
Oh,
that?
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a thing.
That's amazing.
And that's
a lot of
minimum.
money.
Most people, at least in Hunterdon County, will give $500. Yeah.
Okay,
we're all getting married in Hunterdon County,
and we're all moving to.
We're not going to Make Flaccid, New York anymore. We're going there.
No. Yeah, we're going to book our gigs in Jersey.
We're not giving 500.
Did you say Lake Flaccid?
I said Make Flaccid.
Make Flaccid.
Oh, Make Flaccid. Okay.
Yeah,
for Eric, right?
Wait,
Make Flaccid.
Let's make sure we clarify what he said for a third time. Just let's do that. Just for John Young. So, as Brian just pointed out, though, or Howie said it himself, that's Hunterdon County. So that's a nice, well-heeled county.
It's a very well-informed county.
Yeah.
Well,
and
what book did they read? I need to buy that for my people.
The Book of Mormon, obviously.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, you would like it, to fly over when you can, because Trump owns a golf course and a mansion. But
I've worked at his golf course out here. It's beautiful.
When he was president, it just made all the hobby pilots really mad because
it's no fly zone.
No fly zone, and these guys pay big bucks for these, for the hangars, and for 4 years they couldn't fly.
Yeah.
Well,
Eric's region is different. Like Eric, if it's the male cousin marrying the female sister, like, is it the money? Does it?
It's all weird.
Town next over.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right.
No, that's on the Vermont border.
All right,
you give Ben and Jerry's.
I think we have confused this guy with the answers to these questions.
Yeah,
he's in there somewhere.
You need to get the guy's name from David Letterman. Remember, Letterman would occasionally read letters early in his career and be like, "Oh, we have a letter here from like Bob Johnson of whatever," and it was always the same name. He would ask a question, and they
from
would try to
Montana or
answer.
something. Yeah,
something. Yeah. We need to do that next time we do this, Howie. Get those names from old Letterman shows. Be like, hey, we have a comment. It's
People Jeske from Butte, Montana asked.
Yeah, because I didn't want to embarrass the guy that actually asked the question. So
you know what? If Nick Spinelli or Jason Janai has a question,
here we go.
Happy to
they
help
can feel free. Pew, pew. That's going to be a YouTube clip now.
Oh, it's going to be. All right. Gentlemen, thank you all so much. And thank you all for tuning in. And maybe we'll do this once a month, answer some questions we get
Viewer
on
mail.
the interwebs.
Viewer mail.
Yep.
Good night.
Viewer mail.
Viewer mail.